Teaching Artistic Responsiveness. Janelle Adsit here. What does it mean to write and teach writing in this moment? There are facts I could name here that speak to our context. Over 1 million people have died from the coronavirus, and the victims of coronavirus are also those disproportionately who suffer the societal harms of inadequate access to clean air and water, healthcare, living wage. The website Mapping Police Violence indicates that 826 people have been killed by police in the United States this year. Inequities appear there as well. A disproportionate number of police killings are of Black people. This year is not anomalous. When we come into our classrooms, whether that includes opening a door or logging into Zoom, we meet our students in this context. What does it mean to teach art in this time, a time of crisis? Articles like the one you see on the screen are published by the day. Articles reporting on artist-led creative healing spaces, creative awareness campaigns, art that exposes the truths of our time. Webinars like the one shown at right, hosted at Arts Midwest, are offered to help artists make sense of this time in terms of their craft. Hashtags appear. Some look to art in times of crisis. There's also the need to reassert the value of art in these times. Toni Morrison's words are often quoted. This is precisely the time when artists go to work, not when everything is fine, but in times of dread. That's our job. These words ring in my mind. Writing in the nation's 150th anniversary special issue, Morrison is here summarizing the words of a friend and saying that there's no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. How do creative writing teachers help students to know how to go to work, how to do the work of creating? What does it mean to respond? I want to pause on this word, respond, responsiveness, and see what it might open for us as we think about our classroom practice, our writing practice. On the screen here, you see the etymology of the word. The language of making answer holds particular resonance to us as makers. To respond is to make answer, to find an answering form. We do this through literature, through art. I think of Kairos, that Greek god with his particular relation to time. The word gives us a way of thinking about time and what it means to respond in it and of it. Kairos is an ancient tool for thinking, as much as Kairos also names an ancient Greek figure. As this tool, we come to know that we respond in a moment. We know that we cannot take up this tool and remove it from context. Carolyn R. Miller reminds that we must always acknowledge the complexity and untranslatability of this concept, as is the reality of cross-cultural translation and translation across eras. But if we take inspiration from this word and its multiple valences, as well as we can understand it, we find that Kairos points us to ways of thinking about response to a moment in time. There is, on the one hand, what a moment asks for. That is, the work of understanding the world, attuning to it, paying attention. There is, on the other hand, what a moment might not know it needs. This is the responsive work of creating change, of intervening, of transforming in a way that is uniquely timely. And this, the second part of the equation, we see that Kairos and the responsiveness it teaches is not about staying in the confines of the moment, but is instead about knowing how to respond in ways that are transformative of it. I think of Robin D.G. Kelly's words from Freedom Dreams, as he encourages thinkers and artists to do the work of imagining radically different futures. Poetry, therefore, is a revolt, a scream in the night, an emancipation of language and old ways of thinking that pushes us toward transformation. The challenge is to invent. Kairos presents us with this challenge, in Carolyn Miller's words, to invent within a set of unfolding and unprecedented circumstances in every moment, knowing that in some ways, every moment is unique unto itself and its potential, even as we acknowledge continued histories. To move to the end of the quote here, we create art that will be understood as uniquely meaningful in our present circumstances. To approach literary art making in this way is to change the question. The common question, what is the work doing, tends to center a set of things, where we might ask about an artist's interests or expression, the particular craft choices made to produce effects that are specific to the text, with the implication that they are generalizable to multiple audiences. This is one way of thinking about art. But to ask a different question, how does the artist respond? How does the artist show up to this moment in a way that is attuned? Responsiveness asks different questions. How does the work of art call up the moments responded to? I've been rereading and rereading Claudia Rankine's Citizen in this time, along with her new book, Just Us, An American Conversation. In Citizen, texts are dated, August 4th, 2011, in memory of Mark Dugan, July 13th, 2013. That day is not named in the text, a day the reader remembers as the day George Zimmerman was acquitted for the killing of Trayvon Martin. Rankine's poems are embedded in the moment. You can't read the work without reading that particular moment, July 13, 2013. Her poems respond to the particularity of one moment, even as they feel very present to this moment we are in, as I speak here. So her poems at once are of a moment, as they also are of another moment. Transcending a moment in this way is very different from the way transcendence has been traditionally conceived in Western art history. It's not about a transcendent experience of a universal human connection. It is about being in and with the world as it is right now, staying with it, staying attuned, doing our best, our artist's best, to offer what the moment asks for and what it needs. This quote from Alan D'Souza offers much insight about the difference. In this quote, D'Souza links losing oneself into the transcendent with other forms of commodified experiences that are given over to status quo dominant ideologies. D'Souza writes of wanting to undo the ways that this type of transcendence is trained into us, to refuse the script. Instead, D'Souza writes, I want something as sullied and debased as this conflict-ridden world outside the museum walls and within myself. Responsiveness to the present, to this world, this conflict-ridden world, doesn't mean a neglect of the future in art. We can be, indeed, it may be necessary to be present to at once continued history, that is the history that conditions us and is replicated in the present. Validities in this slide header is there for emphasis. We read the future in art. Robin D. Kelley says as much in Freedom Dreams, that the imagination that sees the future in the present is what Kelly calls poetry or poetic knowledge, following from Césaire's essay, Poetry and Knowledge. Kelly asks us to envision the somewhere in advance of nowhere, citing Jane Cortez there. This is an extremely difficult task, yet it is a matter of great urgency. Without new visions, we don't know what to build, only what to knock down. So there's a definition of responsiveness there. I'll close with an interview excerpt from Michael War, co-editor of the book you see on the screen of Poetry and Protest, From Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin. The interview is available at the link that is listed here, and I'll also include in the script. Listen to War's words with a mind for the ways that the poems he describes in this collection are responsive and the nuanced ways in which they do respond. Thank you.
Is to elucidate, to shed light, to make noise, to remember, to expose, to preach the truth, as I was saying earlier, and to kind of show the complexity. So for me, the reason this book, and I just want to give props to Phil Cushway, who is the guy who kind of started with this idea and vision and brought me into it to help give it shape and to make it happen. But the fact that this book combines poetry but also has a statement by, for instance, the activist Reverend Dr. William Barber II, the fact that it has these essays that are digging deeply into people's kind of personal take on life and poetry. We very openly say, for instance, that at least I say that I see this book as a tool within a toolbox of many other tools. So I want people to take this book and use it as one of the tools they use to transform their condition.
Of course, the title of the book is Of Poetry and Protest, but it's not like you've just included a bunch of poems about protests.
Right. Yeah, and I think that even though that was not, we didn't tell Amiri Baraka what to write, but I think that, it's Amiri Baraka, right? He is going to go, he's going to go to the core, and he is going to find perhaps, an opposite in what he's being asked to do. But the first line that you're referring to, I have always resented the term protest poetry because it seemed to me that it was dropping the poetry I felt closest to in a lead box so it wouldn't contaminate the dull-ass mainstream. In a very interesting way, even though I didn't see it when I first got that piece from him, and we were working on this piece. I'm the editor, right? So I'm editing Amiri Baraka's essay, which is daunting, at midnight often, with him on the phone, him in New York and me here in San Francisco. And that was just about a month before he passed away, by the way. I think this may have been it may have been his last essay. So the reason I say all of that is because I truly do believe that poetry matters and that it has an impact. That's why I see this book as a tool that can help shape ideas, that can help people see things that they may not see otherwise, learn things that they may not have had access to. So I really believe that, but I also believe that we have to find the ways to constantly expand the reach of art.